Okay. So where we're at with this clamshell is basically the same point you get with measuring for your slipcase. So you've already gotten to this point. You have the width of the book, you have the height of the book, and then the depth of the book, or the thickness of the book right here. This is the exact same way you measure for your slipcase, minus your second lid, the second part of your tray, which would close this up and you'd end up having a slipcase. So it's your height plus 1/8 of an inch here, and another 1/8 of an inch, and then your width plus 1/8 of an inch. And then to give yourself a little bit of leeway, I add a total of 1/8 of an inch to your height, and probably about a 1/16 or less, or even the exact width for your book here. And then your depth is a little bit of leeway, a little bit of room to allow for the book to slide in. You want it snug, but you don't want it tight. You want to be able to lift it up and pour it out, or a nice easy pull on the book. Okay, and then now I've lined it. So this is the exact same thing you would do for your slipcase without your top tray. What we're gonna end up doing is putting your book here. We're gonna create a second tray that closes in over your book. All right, so the very first thing we're gonna do is to measure for this piece of material. You're going to kind of do like how we did for the slipcase, and I use a 3/4 inch joint right here that allows for a turn in here. We're gonna rock this down, and then another 3/4 of an inch. So it's the full perimeter of the box plus 1.5 inches, 3/4 on both sides. Okay. The height or the width of the material is going to be anywhere between 1/2 of an inch and 3/4 of a turn in on the back side, plus, closer, so about 3/4 of an inch, plus the height of the tray down here, plus the height of the inside of this tray, and 1/2 an inch to 3/4 of an inch inside the tray. And then we're gonna wrap this fully, and then we're gonna cut a piece to line the inside. So this piece is going to be the exact height of the box and the width, plus a 3/4 inch turn in to wrap underneath the bottom side. Okay, that turn in is gonna go underneath, so it'll be flush all the way around and wrap underneath. Okay, so for this, I've already measured out. Knock my tripod down. For this, I've already measured out. This tray is, or this piece of material for this tray is 19 5/16 by 4 1/4. Now, class purposes, I like to call this tray 1 or A. This is the one that your book is gonna sit in. We're gonna create a second tray. That tray is going to basically be measured like if this tray 1 was your book, because that tray is going to fully wrap and cover up this tray. So tray 2 is gonna cover up tray 1. So we'll get to that in a minute. And again, you'll wanna leave a little bit of room, but not enough room that if you shook it, it would move around and you could feel it rocking on you. All right, so the wrapping of this, I like to, get my white pencil out again. I like to mark all down my material, 3/4 of an inch. And then I like to have my starter, just like we did for the material, wrapping of the material of a slipcase. I like to have a starter corner right here. Okay, that starter corner is the open end of the box. So here's your bottom part of the turn in, and here's the top front side of your turn in. This all folds in and wraps the corner. Let me get a tray to show you what that actually looks like.
You dum-dum. Oh, I mean, you godly person, you.
Okay, so I don't know where that tray is, but we'll get to that point here really soon. Okay, so where that's the part that goes down.
Why do I go through Charlotte's Web to get to this thing?
I know. I'm gonna glue that side down.
Spear.
I did that backwards. Okay, come back over here. There's a spider over there attacking Mara. So instead of re-gluing, what I'm gonna do is I'm just gonna mark this over again. And I still did that wrong. Okay, so there we go. I'm just starting on the other side. That's what we're doing. Okay. It's like Bob Ross, just happy accidents. Okay. We'll rub that in. And then you can, I don't like to just completely wrap it. I like to cut as I go. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna cut this so it makes it easier for me to fold. Just like how we did with the slip case, we had a square cut and then we had a triangular cut. That's your miter that folds over. Okay, so I'm going to start with the square cut just since it's easiest. And if you can see, I'm going to move you a little bit closer. Actually, I'm going to work with you right in front of me. So. All right, that should work. Okay, so I'm going to flush that up with the back of my box. It's gonna be cut, and then I'm gonna scoot this over. I'm gonna get the inside cut of my box, and I'm gonna go about a board thickness away. And then I'm gonna cut this off a board thickness away. So you end up with a little notch there. See that? Okay. And I'm gonna come over here, and I'm gonna draw this out. What we're gonna end up going for is, I'm exaggerating with my pencil line, but I'm gonna go inwards, and I'm cutting this flush with the outside of the box. I'm gonna leave a little triangle there. Okay, so exaggerating my actual cut line inwards, flush line, and I'm gonna leave a little bit of a board thickness angle cut, and I'll show you what that does later. That gives you a turn in or a tuck in. A tuck in, like if you were just making a regular cover. That regular corner when you cut your 45 on a book cover, you leave that little tuck in that you can that covers up your board. So that's what we're going to do. We're actually going to cover up that little corner of this board. Okay, so what we're doing, you can see, is I'm exaggerating that, but I'm going to pull it off just a little bit, just a hair, and I'm about a board thickness away. All right, I'm gonna flush this with the top of the box, about a board thickness away, and then I'm gonna cut, just eyeball cut that miter, and that's what you're left with. All right, I'm not gonna mess with this backside yet. We'll get to that in a minute. But on this side of the back side, I'm gonna do a 45. And that doesn't have to be an exact 45 to the corner of the box. It could be just, you could just eyeball it. That's what I do. Because this actually gets glued down to the cover of your clamshell, and you won't ever see how pretty or ugly it is. Okay, next step, I'm gonna scoot you back again. Next step is, I'm gonna glue this side and turn it over. And you can use a roller for that if you wanted to, but all right. So what I do here, just wipe off any glue. I rock that down on my 3/4 line that I created with the pencil. Rock it down, but I'm also pushing to create a nice little tight joint there. Rock it down, hold it, flip it over, and let my glue off. Rub that in. So I have a nice tight corner here. All right, let me bring you back in front of me. We can do these cuts. Okay, so I'll show you what I was talking about in eyeballing. I'm just gonna, without my square, I'm just gonna cut that off. About a 45. Cut this off, about a 45. Turn this around. Okay, so here we have the square cut that we did earlier. And because you did it flush with the back side of the box earlier, when I lay this down, that cut goes all the way to the back side of the box. So I'll show you on this side what we're gonna do. And we're gonna do the same thing that we do here, over here, but reversed, okay? So we're gonna go flush with the edge of the box. I'm gonna scoot my square down to be flush with the inside of the box, a board thickness away. And it should be left with that long little tail. And then here, I'll draw it with a pencil. I create a 45 there. You can see that. I don't know if you can see that. There you go. All right, and I just eyeball that from one cut to the next cut, and you end up with that. So what's gonna happen is when this side gets the square cut, this becomes your miter and gives you a nice clean edge. All right, so I'm gonna flip that over. Flush with the inside of my box, about a board thickness away from the edge to that cut. I'm gonna pop that off. So you end up with this funky little corner that's one side is square, this side has a miter. So again, what happens is that square goes down to cover the board, and that miter just gives it a nice clean cut. You can do square and square, but that's open. Okay. I got my backside cut, I got the top cut. I'm gonna fold this over, do it again. I'm not gonna move the camera this time. I'm just gonna rock this over, fall at my 3/4, flip it over, rub in. All right, just get rid of this 45 back here. So now these will all lay down nice and clean with very little buildup. And we'll deal with the fronts here in a little bit. But let's get the square side cuts. All right, so you are flush with the back side of there already from your previous cut. cut a board thickness away. All right. So we're gonna do the same thing we did on this side. Exaggerated here, angled cuts, flush with there, and a little 45 for the cut. So I'm gonna put this right flush, and I'm gonna pull it off of here. And I'll show you why we do that here in a minute. Flush, about a board thickness away, and then I cut that. It's probably a hair too much, but okay. So the reason we do that and create that little angle is because if you cut it flush, you run the problem of when you lay this down, you'll have a tendency of going over your board, and you don't want that. You actually want it really close to flush with a board, or going in at a slight angle. And you can see that little slight angle. That's just going to give you clean. You don't have to clean edge. You don't have to trim it or do any cleanup on that. Okay. So the next step, that's your cut. That's the trickiest part of this whole thing, because your tray 2 is just like this. Then your cover is a basic book cover. How you measure for your joints and your boards is a little bit different. We'll do that too, but this is the trickiest part. So you're going to be watching this video quite a bit. Next thing is the turn-ins, and you'll get that here in a minute. Okay, so what I do is I just flop these over just so I can lay the box down flat, and I glue off up to my turn-in. I don't want to do that just yet. So I just basically, where my line is drawn right here, I glue it off. So I'm just laying down my backside, and I'm really only doing that just so that I can lay my box down without having to play around with these flaps. And I do this with just, doing it a side at a time, or just right up there to the flap. You get a little bit of glue over there, it's not gonna hurt anything. Got a little too much glue. I'll back some of that off so it doesn't ooze out on me. Give that one some paper. And I'll lay this down. Now, if you were doing any of this with leather, that's where it gets really tricky. Slipcases or clamshells, you actually have to draw this out on your piece of leather, make all your cuts, pair it, and then assemble it. It gets really tricky. And I do some touch-up. Pairing as I go along, but for the most part, it's pretty much good to go. Okay. So back in front of me, we're gonna work these here first. Okay. So what we do is I get that. Same concept as the back corners, square and a little miter. I go flush with the inside of the box, and I go about a board thickness away, and I go flush with the edge of the box, and this will become my square. Okay, my square cut. All right, this obviously then becomes my miter. So I'll go flush with the inside of the box, board thickness away, and that cuts my miter. So I now have the square edge that goes in here. I have my miter that folds over there. And you see we have two little clean miters here. and that's going to be your miter edge. And it really doesn't matter if you mess up and put a square corner on a miter, and then on the other side you put a or not a square corner on a miter, but it doesn't matter which flap gets the square or which side gets the miter. That's not a big deal because people won't notice that. Because a lot of people don't do it anyways. Okay, so board thickness away. And a miter. So again, I have my square and I have my miter. Okay? Alright, so now we're gonna put this together. So what I do first is get them out of the way. And you can use a little brush if you want to, just because you got all these little flaps, but I always use a big brush. Alright. So I got my little flaps in the front of the box, and that's going to go up and over. And then you're going to get your bone folder, make it nice and clean. Okay. Then you're going to get your wall flaps. And you don't really need to put your brush back in your bowl because you're not using a whole lot of glue. Just keep that in mind. Just a little bit here and there. All right, that goes there. That gets folded over. The other side gets folded over. Rub that in. Flip this over. That will go on the front. Fold that over. And you see, got a little bit of board showing. All that gets covered up. Don't worry about any of that. Okay, now, see, this is your miter here. Let me see if I can get that just right where you can see it. Okay, you see it creates a little buildup of material. And that gets tucked in, just like if you were doing a corner of a cover. Okay. So it does matter. It doesn't matter if these are square miter or this is a square, the top one is a square miter, just as long as both sides are the same and you end up with one side that's covered. Okay. All right, so get that glue right up to the board, just so you're not having any soft edges. All right. Here, we lay that down, that tuck in. Okay. And I like to work with a dry towels because that actually allows me to rub it down nice and tight. Okay. If you don't tuck that in, you're gonna end up with a little peak, just like if you were making a cover and you didn't tuck that in. All right, take this. This is where this bone folder really excels. This and the rib bone folder, because you can get in there nice and tight inside that corner. Down. Okay, we're gonna do the same thing to the other side. I got glue on the front side of that, so I gotta tuck this in. And I use a wet towel because I got glue on the front. We'll lay this down and we'll do the back wall, which is our miter. Piece of material, there you go, miter. miter. That's going to cover up nice and clean. That's going to cover up our square corners. Okay. Rough it in with my towel and really lay into it with the bone puller. Right, and then set it away. Okay, there you have it. So then the other piece I'm going to cut, flip that over, measures exactly from the inside of this tray, and it goes straight from the inside corner and overhang 3/4 of an inch, and that turns in the other side. Okay, so the only other thing I would say about this is if you were working with leather, or if you were trying to do a different piece of material, like suede or maybe even marble paper. A lot of times what some people will do is actually just line it here flat, and that doesn't look really great. What I would do is actually use panels, 22 chipboard panels, wrap it with material, stick it to the side, stick it to the side, stick it to the back, stick it to the bottom. And if I were to do that, then what I would do is, to cover this up, I would put a piece of material here all the way across. That way I have solid black, and then I could do a white decorative paper or whatever I was going to use here. But you also have to keep in mind, if you are going to be doing panels, the thickness of the panels themselves. So wrap a couple pieces of material, whatever you're going to use, suede, especially if I'm using suede or other colors of leather, because that's really thick. I mean, a 22 chipboard with a piece of leather could come out to like 1/8 of an inch. So you have to keep that in mind for whatever your measurements are going to be, your book plus these walls plus your panels. So okay, so the next thing I'm going to do it by myself, is I'm going to make tray 2, because tray 2 is just like this. Like I said earlier, tray 2 is just like this, but allows for this measurement. So you're going to measure this tray like if you were measuring the book for tray 1. And then next time you see me will be for the cover.